Welcome to So Very Easy. My name is Laura, and when we think of Christmas colors, we think of red and green and even blue now, silver and gold. But what about black and gray? Studio E has come out with a beautiful line of black, gray, and gold, and clearly you can see it's meant for Christmas, and it is called Winter Memories. There's also a free pattern to go along with the fabric. I'll put a link in the description to the free pattern so that you can follow along. Now this would make a great pattern even if you did not use Christmas fabric. And the first thing I do is I mark my fabric to correspond with the fabric on the list. You've probably seen me use these before. I have flathead pins that I just drew on, and I have all the letters of the alphabet in it. So I now can have all of my pins corresponding with my letters. Sometimes I will choose one fabric and replace it with three. And in this case, I'm going to put all three pins on that one fabric. So instead of having all of those colors, I've changed them so that the one color will have two additional ones. I've marked them with the pins, and that keeps me straight. I take all of the cutting directions and I cut them all next. And I'll start with one of my piles and I'll cut them all and check mark them off as I go along. And as I'm cutting the fabric, I transfer the pins to the appropriate color. Now I have all of the fabric ready to make the quilt, even the binding. At this point, there's no guessing if I have enough fabric. I know I do. And from there, then I like to decipher my pattern. I have a center block, and I also have center crosses that are going to go by with 4 corner units. This outside is a border, so I have 2 borders. Knowing that before I start sort of helps the process go along a lot quicker. The next thing I like to do is I like to make any of the units that are half square triangles or flying geese, anything like that, and then it's easier to put it all together. So we're going to start by making these 2 flying geese. So to make both of those flying geese, I need to have long rectangles at 5 inches by 9.5 inches, and then square blocks at 5 inches. Both of these units are going to be sewn identical. And on the 5-inch squares, you need to draw diagonal lines from corner to corner on all 8 of the blocks, because those 8 are going to go on the 4. You're going to place it right on the corner. And what you're going to do is you're going to stitch down that center line. And you'll do that to all 4 of these units. When you have all 4 blocks sewn together, you should be able to fold this right back into that corner. And if you turn it over, it should match perfectly, because this rectangle is actually going to stay the same size. You're just adding this piece on the end. Once you know it's right, you can cut this piece off 1/4 inch. You want to cut it towards that corner, not into the big piece. Now you can take that and press it. Next, we'll be taking the 4 other 5-inch squares and putting them on this corner. And what you're going to do is create this triangle from this fabric. So the line must go in this direction. If it goes in this direction, you end up with a long, thin piece. Match up your corners and stitch down that line. Trim off 1/4 inch and press that back. Now this unit is commonly called flying geese. When the 4 are done, you need to do the other 4, which will now be opposite. The black will be the large triangle. Put your square over top and stitch down and repeat the same as this. 1 corner on, now the next. And you will have 4 of the units that are opposite. Now we have 4 units with the light in the center and 4 units with the dark in the center. And when you match them up, it creates this very large V. And the pattern recommends that you have the light in the center. However, you can choose to have the dark in the center if you'd like. So either way will work. So I'm going to sandwich them together and stitch along that line there, and I will have 1 complete unit. So those units belong right there. I have the center block already cut and ready to go. So the next unit I'm going to make are these 4 corner units. So the first 2 pieces that are going to be sewn together are the 2 top pieces, which are these 2. In the pattern, it looks like you have to do 2 this way and 2 units that way. However, you can sew them together because 2 will go that way and 2 will go that way. The first section is done, but I do lay them out how they have them looking. The next will be this secondary row. Has the same idea that the square is sewn onto the rectangle. When you sew them together, it will work out regardless which way you do them. I'm going to be able to now lay them out as they're recommended, and the seams are going in the right direction. We have the last row to do, which we have the 3 squares to join together. And like the 2 top rows, you're going to be able to flip that square afterwards. So sew the 2 seams together, and the seams are going to go out. And the last 4 units, 2 are going to go in one direction, and the 2 are going to go in another direction. Now you're going to be able to sew those 2 units together. So you have 2 that look like this and 2 that look like this. You can now see the design. And this is going to equal your 4 corners. We're ready to put the center of the quilt together. Start with your center square, and then the points are going to go towards the center square all the way around. And for the corner pieces, you're going to have 2 go in one corner and 2 go in the other. So you're going to have a dark in the center, the light up at the corner, but this longer piece is going to go in towards the center. You will see this gray stepping into this area here. So now you're going to be able to sew them together and sew them in rows. So you're going to have 1 row, 2 rows, and 3 rows. Now you're going to be able to sew those rows together. We only have 2 borders left to do. Before I sew any of the borders together, I lay them out as they're supposed to be, and I make sure that I have all of the pieces. And by doing this, it makes sure that I've used the right pieces to go in the right spot. If I had something left over or something didn't fit, then I would know it wasn't laid out right. Now I'm going to be able to sew the borders together. The shortest border is going to go on first, and it'll go on the top and the bottom to be pressed towards the outside. The next 2 borders are going to go on the sides. The last border needs to go on. We're going to start with the shortest side. The quilt top is done, and when it's all quilted, it will equal 39 by 39. I now have my first black and gray Christmas quilt. You don't have to do it in Christmas fabric. It's a great pattern. Nice big pieces, which means you can use fabric that have big designs on them. Big prints, bold prints, even children's prints would go really, really great in this. Now, I was able to get the entire quilt top done in an afternoon because I cut it the night before, even with the binding, had it all laid out. It went together really quick and easy. I'll put a link in the description so that you can download this pattern and follow along. And as always, thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.